Cowboy returned from Civil War after 5 years. What he saw left him speechless. The train slowed as it approached the small frontier town, its iron wheels screaming softly against the rails. Elias Carter stood near the door, one hand gripping his worn hat. 5 years had passed since he left this place. 5 years of war, dust, and loss. He had imagined this moment many times, stepping back into the life he once knew. But as the train stopped and he stepped down onto the wooden platform, something felt wrong. The air itself seemed different. The town looked familiar at first glance. The same wide street, the same wooden buildings, the same distant hills glowing under the morning sun, yet there was something new beneath the surface. Metal towers stood where empty fields used to be. Thin wires stretched between poles like spider webs, and the people, they moved quietly, speaking in low voices as if they were careful about being heard. Elias adjusted his coat and began walking. Some townsfolk stared at him, others quickly looked away. No one greeted him like before. He remembered when returning cowboys were welcomed with laughter and strong handshakes. Now the silence followed him like a shadow. He stopped outside the old saloon. The swinging doors were gone, replaced by a smooth metal entrance that opened automatically as someone approached. Elias frowned. He hesitated before stepping inside. The saloon was cleaner than he remembered, too clean. Strange glowing lamps hung from the ceiling, casting soft white light instead of warm lantern fire. A few men sat at tables, drinking quietly. None of them looked drunk or loud. It felt more like a waiting room than a place of joy. Behind the counter stood a man Elias recognized, Thomas, the bartender. Thomas looked older, thinner. His eyes widened slightly when he saw Elias. "You came back," Thomas said slowly. Elias nodded. "War ended, figured it was time." Thomas hesitated, then poured him a drink without asking. "Things changed while you were gone." "I noticed," Elias replied, glancing around. "What happened here?" Thomas looked toward the windows before speaking. "They came from the sky." Elias thought it was a joke, but Thomas's face remained serious. "Sky visitors," Thomas continued quietly. "They brought machines, medicine, new ways of building, said they wanted peace." Elias leaned against the counter, and people just accepted that. At first, folks were scared. Then the sickness stopped. Crops grew faster, no more drought. Thomas lowered his voice. "But some say there's a price." Before Elias could ask more, the door opened again. Two figures entered wearing long coats made of smooth silver material. They moved calmly, almost too calmly. The room grew even quieter as they passed. Elias felt a strange pressure in his chest, like the moment before a storm. "Visitors," he whispered. Thomas nodded once. The figures ordered nothing. They simply stood for a moment, scanning the room with eyes that seemed too focused, too aware. One of them glanced at Elias briefly, and a cold shiver ran down his spine. Then they turned and left. Elias exhaled slowly. "They don't look human." "No," Thomas said. "But they say they mean no harm." Elias finished his drink and stepped back into the street. His thoughts raced. He had survived cannon fire and endless marches, yet this quiet town made him more uneasy than any battlefield. He decided to head toward his family ranch. The road stretched across open land. Grass moved gently under the wind, and the sky remained clear and wide. Yet above him, faint shapes moved slowly, lights drifting silently like distant ships. When he reached the ranch gate, he stopped. Everything looked untouched. The house stood strong, the barn upright. But there were no animals, no smoke from the chimney, no signs of life. Dust covered the porch. Elias stepped forward cautiously. The wooden boards creaked under his boots. Inside, the furniture remained exactly as he remembered. A plate rested on the table as if someone left in a hurry years ago. His chest tightened. "Hello," he called. Only silence answered. He walked through each room slowly. No signs of struggle, no damage, just emptiness. Outside again, Elias walked toward the fields. That was when he noticed something strange, a section of ground where the soil looked slightly darker, smoother than the rest. Curious, he knelt and brushed away dirt. Metal. A small circular device lay buried beneath the surface. Its surface shimmered faintly, reflecting sunlight in shifting colors. Elias hesitated before touching it. The moment his fingers made contact, the device activated. Soft light spread across its surface, forming patterns that moved like flowing water. Elias jerked his hand back, but the light followed him, hovering in the air. Images appeared, mountains he did not recognize, stars, symbols rotating slowly. Elias stood frozen, speechless. The images changed suddenly, showing a battlefield not from Earth but somewhere far beyond. Strange machines moved across alien terrain. Then the light vanished as quickly as it appeared. The device returned to silence. Elias stared at it, heart pounding. Why did it react to him? A shadow moved behind him. He turned sharply, hand reaching for a weapon that was no longer there. A woman stood several steps away. She wore simple frontier clothes, yet something about her felt different. Her eyes were calm, almost glowing faintly in the sunlight. "You returned later than expected," she said gently. Elias narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" She studied him carefully. "Someone who has been waiting." "For what?" "For you to see the truth," she answered. Elias felt tension rise inside him. "You one of those visitors?" She smiled slightly but did not answer directly. Instead, she glanced at the device. "It recognized you? I don't even know what it is." "You will," she said. "Soon." Elias stepped closer. "Where is my family?" "What happened here?" Her expression softened, but sadness flickered across her face. "The world changed while you fought your war," she said quietly, "and now your choices will shape what comes next." Before Elias could ask more, she turned and began walking away toward the hills. "Wait," he called. She paused only briefly. "Watch the sky tonight," she said without looking back. "Then you will understand." Elias stood alone again, the strange device at his feet and questions filling his mind. As evening approached, he sat on the porch of the empty ranch, watching the horizon. The sun dipped below the hills and darkness spread across the land. Then the sky changed. A massive shape descended silently from the stars, larger than anything he had ever seen. Lights moved across its surface like flowing rivers. Elias rose slowly, his breath caught in his throat. After 5 years of war, he thought nothing could surprise him anymore. But what he saw now left him completely speechless. The massive shape in the sky moved slowly, almost silently, like a dark cloud that ignored the wind. Elias stood frozen on the porch of his empty ranch, unable to look away. Soft lights ran along the surface of the ship, glowing like rivers of silver fire. He had seen war machines before, cannons, trains filled with soldiers, iron ships crossing rivers, but nothing like this. This thing felt alive, aware. The air hummed gently as the ship stopped above the distant hills. Elias swallowed hard. The mysterious woman's words echoed in his mind. "Watch the sky tonight." "Well," he muttered quietly to himself, "I'm watching." A thin beam of light extended downward from the ship, touching the ground far away. It did not flash or explode. It simply rested there, calm and steady. Elias felt a strange pull inside his chest, part fear, part curiosity. Without fully deciding, he grabbed his hat and began walking toward the hills. The land grew darker as night settled. Crickets sang softly, and the wind carried the smell of dry grass. Yet beneath the natural sounds was a low vibration, like a distant engine that never stopped. After nearly an hour, Elias reached a ridge overlooking a wide valley. He stopped. Below him stood structures he had never seen before. Smooth towers made from shining metal rose from the ground, connected by glowing paths. Small floating lights moved between them like silent birds, and around the structures stood people from the town. Some watched quietly. Others worked beside strange machines, moving with calm focus. No one looked afraid. Instead, they seemed guided. Elias crouched behind a rock, observing carefully. The beam of light from the ship touched a circular platform in the center of the valley. From within the light, figures slowly appeared, tall shapes stepping forward one by one. Visitors. They moved gracefully, their silver clothing reflecting the moonlight. Their faces looked almost human, but their movements felt too smooth, too precise. Elias felt a cold chill. A hand suddenly touched his shoulder. He spun around, ready to fight, but stopped when he saw the mysterious woman again. "You came," she said calmly. "You knew I would," he replied, lowering his voice. "What is all this?" She looked toward the valley. "A transition. That doesn't explain anything." She studied him carefully, as if measuring his reaction. "Your town agreed to receive guidance. The visitors offer knowledge and stability. Many accepted. And those who didn't," her silence answered enough. Elias frowned. "Are they dangerous?" "That depends on which ones you mean." He glanced back at the figures below. "There's more than one group," she nodded slightly. "Like humans, they do not all think the same." Elias watched as one visitor raised a hand. A holographic image appeared in the air, moving shapes that looked like maps or plans. "Why show me this?" he asked. "Because you are different," she said simply. He laughed quietly. I'm just a tired cowboy. No, she replied gently. You survived years of war without losing your independence. That matters. Her words confused him, but before he could respond, a loud mechanical sound echoed through the valley. One of the machines malfunctioned, sending sparks into the air. Several townspeople stepped back nervously. A visitor approached and placed a hand over the machine. Instantly, it calmed, lights returning to normal. Elias noticed something else. The townspeople did not speak much. They waited for the visitors to act first. They trust them too much, Elias whispered. They believe they are building a better future, the woman answered. And you, what do you believe? She hesitated for the first time. I believe humanity must choose its own path. Elias turned toward her. You said you're not human. That is correct. He studied her face again. She looked human, but something about her presence felt deeper, older. Then why help me? She looked at him directly. Because you resist influence, you question instead of obeying. Below them, the beam of light from the ship began to fade. The visitors moved in coordinated patterns, guiding townspeople toward different areas. Elias noticed one man from town standing stiffly, eyes unfocused. A visitor placed a hand near his head, and the man's expression relaxed instantly. That doesn't look like free choice, Elias said sharply. The woman said nothing. Elias felt anger rise inside him, the same feeling he had on the battlefield when orders made no sense, but soldiers followed anyway. I didn't come back from war to see my home turned into someone else's experiment, he said. She watched him closely. Then perhaps you will become important, he shook his head. I just want answers. You will have them, she said softly, but answers bring responsibility. The ground suddenly trembled lightly. Elias looked up as a smaller craft separated from the main ship and descended closer to the valley floor. Lights scanned across the land until one beam stopped on the ridge where Elias stood. His heart pounded. They see us, he whispered. Yes, she replied calmly. Should we run? No. The light grew brighter, surrounding them in a soft glow. Elias felt warmth spread through his body, not painful but intense. Images flashed in his mind, memories from the war, faces of soldiers, moments of fear and courage. He gasped, stepping back. What are they doing? Testing, she said. The light faded suddenly. The craft moved away again. Elias stood breathing heavily, confused and shaken. They were inside my head, he said. They were measuring your resistance, she answered. And, she smiled slightly. You surprised them. Elias looked back toward the massive ship hanging above the valley. What happens next? He asked quietly. She turned toward the sky. Now they will start watching you more closely. As if responding to her words, the ship's lights shifted, focusing briefly toward Elias' position. For the first time since returning home, he felt certain of one thing. The war he had left behind was not truly over. It had only changed form. The night air felt heavier after the strange light scanned Elias. He stood on the ridge for a long moment, staring at the massive ship above the valley. Its surface glowed softly, like a quiet storm waiting to begin. They tested me, Elias said slowly, still trying to understand what happened. Yes, the mysterious woman replied. They wanted to see how your mind responds. Elias turned toward her. And what did they find? That you are difficult to influence, she said. That makes you valuable. Elias did not like the sound of that. During the war, he had seen how armies treated people who were called valuable. It usually meant danger followed them. I don't want to be part of their plans, he said firmly. She gave him a calm look. You already are. Below them, the valley remained active. Visitors and townspeople moved together, working on machines that hummed softly. Floating lights drifted like fireflies, illuminating paths between the towers. Elias watched carefully. Something felt wrong, not openly dangerous, but too controlled. They look peaceful, he admitted, but everyone moves the same way, like they're following invisible rules. The woman nodded slightly. Many humans accept guidance when it removes fear and hardship. The visitors offer stability, health, and order. And what do they take in return? Elias asked. She did not answer immediately. Choice, she said finally. The words settled heavily between them. Elias thought about the battlefield, soldiers marching because they were told to, not because they wanted to. He remembered the feeling of losing himself inside orders and chaos. I didn't survive 5 years of war just to lose freedom at home, he said quietly. She studied him with interest. That is why you matter. Before Elias could respond, footsteps approached behind them. He turned quickly and saw three figures moving toward them through the darkness. Two were visitors in silver clothing. The third was a man from town, Daniel, the blacksmith's son. Daniel's face looked calm but empty, his movements slow and precise. The visitors stopped several steps away. One of them spoke, its voice smooth and clear. "Elias Carter, you returned after long absence." "We welcome you." Elias remained silent for a moment. "You've already been watching me." "Yes," the visitor answered. "You possess rare neurological resistance we wish to understand." "I'm not a study animal," Elias replied. The visitor tilted its head slightly, as if processing the emotion behind his words. "We do not mean harm. Humanity stands at the edge of great change. Cooperation ensures survival." Elias crossed his arms. "Survival at the cost of freedom isn't cooperation." The visitor paused, then glanced toward the woman beside him. She remained silent, observing. "We offer advancement," the visitor continued. "Disease has ended here, conflict reduced, resources stabilized. And people think less for themselves," Elias said firmly. The visitor did not deny it. Daniel suddenly stepped forward. His eyes looked distant. "Elias, you should join us," he said softly. "Everything is easier now, no pain, no fear." Elias felt uneasy hearing those words. Daniel used to be loud and full of jokes. Now he sounded like someone repeating lines he did not fully understand. "What did you do to him?" Elias asked sharply. "We enhanced emotional balance," the visitor replied. "Humans suffer unnecessarily." Elias shook his head. "Pain teaches us who we are." The visitor observed him quietly, then said, "You resist integration, that is expected." "Integration?" Elias repeated. "Alignment between human consciousness and advanced guidance systems," the visitor explained. Elias laughed without humor. "Sounds like control to me." Silence followed. The second visitor stepped forward. "Not all among us agree with forced alignment." Elias noticed the slight tension between them. The mysterious woman beside him watched closely but said nothing. "So there are sides," Elias said. "Yes," the second visitor admitted. "Some believe humanity must be directed, others believe humanity must choose its path." Elias looked toward the first visitor. "And you?" "We prioritize stability, even if it means taking away what makes us human," Elias replied. The visitors did not argue. The wind moved across the ridge, carrying the distant hum of machines below. Finally, the first visitor spoke again. "Your resistance may create conflict among humans. We ask you to cooperate peacefully." Elias considered his answer carefully. He knew he could not fight them directly. Their technology was beyond anything he understood. "I'll listen," he said slowly, "but I won't surrender my mind." "That is acceptable," the visitor replied. The two visitors turned and began walking back toward the valley, Daniel following them without hesitation. Elias watched him leave, feeling a heavy weight inside his chest. "They are changing people," he said quietly. "Yes," the woman answered. "And you said not all of them agree," she nodded. "Some believe humanity must grow through struggle and choice. Others believe control is the fastest path to peace." Elias looked back toward the massive ship in the sky. "What happens if people like me refuse?" She met his gaze. "Then you may become a symbol," Elias sighed. "I never wanted to lead anything." "Leadership often finds those who do not seek it," she said gently. Below them, several townspeople gathered together, whispering nervously. Elias noticed small signs of resistance, people watching carefully, exchanging quiet signals. "They're not all convinced," he said. "No," she agreed. "Some still remember who they were before guidance." Elias felt something shift inside him. The same instinct that kept him alive during the war, protecting others, standing firm when things felt wrong. He took a deep breath. "If there's going to be a fight," he said slowly, "I'd rather it not be with guns." She smiled slightly. "That is why you are different from other warriors." The sky suddenly brightened as the massive ship adjusted its position. A beam of light scanned across the valley again, slower this time, more focused. Elias felt its presence like a silent question. "They are watching your decision," she said. Elias stared into the light, his jaw tightening. He realized something important in that moment. The war ahead would not be fought with bullets or swords, it would be fought with choices. And whether he wanted it or not, he had already stepped onto the battlefield. Morning arrived slowly, painting the frontier sky with soft gold light. Elias stood outside his ranch, watching the massive ship hovering above the valley. The quiet hum in the air had become familiar now, like a distant storm that never left. He had not slept much. The events of the night repeated in his mind. The visitors, their calm voices, the controlled movements of the townspeople, and the feeling that his choices mattered more than he wanted. The mysterious woman stood nearby, silent as always. "You knew this moment would come," Elias said without looking at her. "Yes," she answered gently, "and you still won't tell me everything." She smiled faintly. "Some truths must be understood through action, not words." Elias nodded slowly. He understood that feeling. The war had taught him that lessons learned by experience stayed stronger than anything spoken. Down in the valley, groups of townspeople gathered. Some stood beside the visitors willingly, working with the machines. Others kept distance, watching carefully. The town felt divided now not by anger but by uncertainty. Elias placed his hat on his head and began walking toward the valley. "Where are you going?" she asked. "To talk," he said simply. As he approached, several people noticed him. Whispering spread quickly. Some looked hopeful, others nervous. The visitors watched too, their calm expressions unchanged. Elias stopped at the center of the open space. He felt many eyes on him. One of the visitors stepped forward, the same one who had spoken to him before. "You have returned," it said. "Have you made your decision?" Elias looked around at the people he grew up with, farmers, workers, families who once laughed loudly in the streets. Now many of them stood quietly, waiting. "I've made a choice," he said slowly, "but first I want to understand something." The visitor tilted its head slightly. "You say you want peace," Elias continued. "You say you're helping humanity, but why does it feel like people are losing themselves?" "We reduce suffering," the visitor replied calmly. "Humans experience conflict due to uncontrolled emotions. Guidance creates harmony." Elias shook his head. "Harmony without choice isn't real harmony." Some townspeople nodded quietly. The visitor paused, observing the reactions. "You fear loss of individuality," it said. "I don't fear it," Elias replied. "I see it happening." Another visitor stepped forward, the one who earlier admitted not all agreed with control. "There are debates among us," it said. "Your perspective is being evaluated." Elias crossed his arms. "Then listen carefully." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I fought in a war where people followed orders without thinking. They believed control would bring safety, but control always comes with a cost. Humans grow because we make mistakes. We learn because we struggle." Silence spread across the valley. "You stopped sickness. You helped the land. That's good," Elias said. "But if you take away our freedom to choose, then you're not helping us grow. You're just shaping us into something easier to manage." The first visitor responded, "Freedom often leads to suffering." "And suffering teaches compassion," Elias answered gently. "Without it, we don't understand each other." The visitors exchanged brief glances, communicating silently. Elias continued, his voice steady. "I'm not saying leave, I'm not saying fight. I'm saying stand beside us, not above us." Murmurs spread among the townspeople. One woman stepped forward from the crowd. "We want help," she said, "but we want to remain ourselves." Others nodded. The visitor considered this for a long moment. "Our mission is to ensure stability," it said. "If instability increases, intervention becomes necessary." Elias stepped closer. "Then test us." The visitor's eyes focused on him. "Give us time to choose without influence," Elias said. "Let people decide freely if they want your guidance." The second visitor spoke quietly. "This aligns with one of our internal proposals." The first visitor remained silent, thinking. Above them, the massive ship shifted slightly, as if responding to the conversation. Elias felt nervous but stayed calm. Finally, the visitor said, "You propose coexistence without enforced alignment." "Yes," Elias said. "You help when asked, you teach, but you don't control minds or decisions." Long silence followed. The wind moved across the valley, carrying dust through the air. Then the visitor spoke again. "We will present this proposal to command." A bright beam of light descended briefly, surrounding the visitors. For several moments they stood motionless, communicating silently. Elias waited, heart pounding. Finally the light faded. The visitor looked at him. "Decision reached. Forced alignment will cease in this region. Cooperation will continue only by consent." A wave of relief moved through the crowd. People began talking excitedly, hope returning to their voices. Elias exhaled slowly. "You chose wisely," the mysterious woman whispered beside him. "I just spoke honestly," he replied. The visitor added, "You demonstrated strong leadership without aggression. This outcome may influence future missions." Elias gave a small smile. "Guess cowboys still know a thing or two." The massive ship above slowly began rising higher into the sky, not leaving completely but creating distance like a neighbor giving space. Days passed. The town slowly changed again. Some people continued working with visitor technology. Others returned to traditional ways. Conversations became louder, laughter returned, and the streets felt alive once more. Elias repaired his ranch. New tools helped rebuild fences faster, but he still used his hands and skills. The balance felt right. One evening, he sat on the porch watching the stars. The mysterious woman joined him. "You changed their mission," she said softly. "I didn't change anything," Elias replied. "I just reminded them that humans need freedom," she smiled. "And now?" she asked. Elias looked toward the sky where distant lights moved peacefully. "Now we learn from each other," he said. For the first time since returning home, he felt calm. The war inside him had ended. And ahead lay a future where cowboys and the stars could exist together, not as enemies, but as equals.